the most professional driver I've ever met. I said before, and I keep saying it now, you know, for me rallying is before and after Carlos.
Carlos Sainz bestrode the modern era of rallying. Nearly 20 years a WRC competitor, driving all the landmark cars of that time. And along the way, claiming 26 wins, 97 podiums, 5 manufacturers' championships, and of course, 2 World Drivers' Championships.
He's always the ultimate professional. He brought that commitment and that real desire and will and work ethic.
He had a strong personality, so a lot of people listen to what he says.
You know, if Carlos had a problem, he would survive it. That was down to his intelligence. I look at a lot of people when they get a problem and it goes to pieces. Carlos never went to pieces. You know, it was absolutely amazing.
He was sort of, you know, the Spanish hero. When you went to Spain, there was only one driver as far as they're concerned.
It's kind of strange that he only got 2 world titles, because he was always winning rallies and he was always kind of very consistent, always scoring points, so I think he was definitely king of rally.
King Carlos, El Matador, call him what you will. He first got behind the wheel of a rally car in 1980. He won 2 Spanish national championships and made his WRC debut at Rally Portugal in 1987. Here he gave a signal of what was to come by setting the fastest time on the very first stage. But it was not going to be easy for a man from this part of Europe to make his mark in the WRC.
Obviously it was very difficult for a Spaniard, because at that time we did not have a Spanish World Rally Championship. We didn't have an event. The Spanish driver in the Spanish Championship, we were competing in asphalt. Major teams at that time was Lancia, Renault, Ford. Especially Lancia, Cesare Fiori said, why I need Carlos? Maybe he's a good driver on tarmac, but I have French drivers very good in Corsica, in San Remo. So for a Spaniard it was difficult, because the asphalt specialists were in France, in Italy. If you're a good rally driver, you should be able to win in Kenya, in Monte Carlo, in Thousand Lakes, in England, everywhere. Wow. Why it's like that? One day I have to change that. One day, and I was very anxious to do that, to prove that. And I remember when first meeting with Ove Anderson, he told me he wanted to take me in the team because I was specialist on tarmac, and then I was obviously very young and I'm brave. Now I think I was a little bit crazy, and I said, but Mr. Anderson, I promise you, you will find better driver on gravel than on tarmac.
Ove Anderson, the Toyota Team Supremo, was suitably impressed by the confident young Spaniard, and in 1989 awarded him a limited program with Toyota, then the emerging force in the WRC. But before then, he had made another important connection when he linked up with the man who was to become his co-driver for the next 15 years.
In '87, the driver I was with the official Renault team in Spain, we decided to stop at the end of the season. So I thought, well, I think that's the end of my career. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, Carlos gave me a call and said, because he was interested in having a co-driver that spoke English, and because my parents sent me to England when I was a kid, then I will always be very thankful to my mom and dad. And then Carlos said, at the very end of the season, his co-driver decided to quit. So he said, Luis, I need an answer as soon as possible. So I gave him an answer straight away. I mean, I said, give me 24 hours, because I needed to move from my hometown to Madrid to leave and this. But then I started to go with him, and well, 15 years together.
In 1989, the duo recorded podium finishes in Finland, Italy, and Great Britain, the clearest signs yet that Carlos was a WRC champion in the making. 1990 was the first full WRC season for Carlos behind the wheel of the Celica GT4, a car that, with only one championship victory under its belt in the hands of Juha Kankkunen, still had something to prove. Carlos started strongly with a second place in Monte Carlo and repeated this result on the tarmac of Corsica, but as yet had not fulfilled his prophecy on the gravel, retiring in Portugal. and finding himself outpaced at the Safari Rally by teammates Bjorn Waldegaard and Mikael Eriksson and the Lancia of Kankkunen.
We thought, well, one day we have to win, and the next year started and things were not going right, but then all of a sudden everything changed.
And the setting for that change of fortunes was the Acropolis Rally in Greece, with its searing heat and rough and rocky stages, one of the toughest tests in the sport.
I remember I was very tired at the end. I remember we had a good fight with the Lancias there, with Johan Didier, and finally we managed. We have a good preparation of the rally. The feeling you can imagine, first victory, it's like breaking a piece of concrete. After that, that was much easier. I think first victory is always very special.
Takes a lot of pressure off, because you're trying to win, you can't, and then you go to bed and you think, why are we not winning? Is it me, or is it someone else, or is it the team, or is... And then all of a sudden when you win, okay, you've done it. The press is happy, the press of your home country is happy, and then it seems easy.
Carlos followed that win with another gravel success in New Zealand and was now leading the Drivers' Championship. Join us after the break for the conclusion of the 1990 season, plus more memories from the career of Carlos Sainz. WRC victories under his belt, Carlos Sainz could now consider himself a serious contender for the 1990 World Drivers' Championship. But now he had to take on his opponents, including Juha Kankkunen, on the toughest arena of them all, Rally Finland. In its 40-year history, no one but a Scandinavian driver had won here. Even in 1990, the top 14 was Scandinavian. That was apart from one man. In an awesome display of driving, the Spaniard rewrote the record books. Carlos Sainz had won in Finland.
It was a rally which I enjoyed straight away. Fast roads, jumps and all that. So to win there was one of those things. Why a Latin driver cannot be fast in Finland? There's no reason. So to break that, it was great challenge, and it was difficult for sure.
To go to Finland and win in Finland, you have to be very special to do that. But again, you could see he went there as a young driver, and he was totally focused and committed on wanting to win the fastest rally in the World Championship, and he did it.
This historic win put Carlos way out in front in the championship, and with a second place in Australia and third place in San Remo, despite rolling the Toyota on the third day, he claimed the championship.
At that time you are so young that you don't realize, you don't stop and make step backwards and really think what was happening. Things were running very quickly, and I was not care. I wanted to jump in the car again and start driving. I think the first one is always more special. I must say, there is always the first victory, first championship. The first time you drive a car, the first time of everything is always a little bit special.
And Carlos wasn't resting on his laurels as he completed the season with a win in Great Britain. The defence of his championship in 1991 couldn't have started better, with 3 wins from the first 4 events. And these wins included another milestone with his maiden victory in Monte Carlo. This was also the first win in the Principality for a non-European manufacturer. This was followed with wins in Portugal and Corsica. But the Toyota Celica was under pressure, and the main challenge was coming from the Lancia of Juha Kankkunen. And whenever Carlos faltered, he was there to take the victory.
Everybody wants to beat the champion, that's the matter. Everybody wants to beat whoever is on the top. That is natural and that is normal. But in World Rally Championship, if you are at the top, you have always quite a lot of pressure. You have to perform all the time. You cannot have bad days, you cannot have a lot of mistakes, you cannot take it easy, one single break-in. You always have to push very hard.
And Carlos was still pushing hard with victories in New Zealand and Argentina, but his fortunes were about to change. After a retirement in Finland, he and Lewis headed for Australia, where they looked to be on their way to a points finish until this happened. This was one of the biggest crashes of Carlos and Lewis's career.
In fact, we rolled 3 times on that event. We rolled in a super stage on tarmac, then we rolled in roller coaster, which was the name of the stage, roller coaster, a shorter stage, 5 kilometers, and then of course in Bunnings stages, and that was the last one. I remember when we rolled there, we rolled in, you know, as you've seen on the TV, it was very spectacular. And as soon as the car stopped, the first thing, of course, that we asked each other, Carlos asked me, Luis, are you okay? Yeah. And he said, Luis, do you think we can continue? And I said, Carlos, no, I think not anymore. I mean, the car was in pieces. He still feels sometimes something wrong there, because it's been quite hard, you know. So from then, of course, everything changed. I mean, he could still drive, but of course, after that accident, that year, things went, whatever had to go wrong, it went wrong. You know, I remember going to Spain and the car wouldn't start in the part for me. Lancia improved a lot, but we were reluctant to admit that they could beat us so easily. So we were trying very hard, too hard. And then in RAC we had a mechanical problem again, so it was supposed not to be our year.
The Spanish duo were still in contention for the championship when they reached the last round in Great Britain, but an overheating engine would mean they'd be second best to Juha Kankkunen. Carlos has never been one for dwelling on what might have been, and in 1992 he set about putting the events of the previous year behind him.
In terms of confidence, I always recover quite well. I think actually the rally drivers were a little bit crazy in that side, and you cannot keep thinking. If you think something is going to happen, I'm sure you don't drive a rally car. So we always think nothing can happen. I think that is something that it's in your mind, and you jump in the car, and after a few meters you are again flat out.
Second in Monte Carlo and third in Portugal appeared to be good results, but the new evolution of the Celica, the turbo four-wheel drive, was suffering teething problems, while Juha Kankkunen and Didier Auriol, who were in the new Lancia Integrale, seemed to be straight on the pace. And next up, it was the toughest test for any car, Kenya's Safari Rally.
I'm sweating already just mentioning Safari Rally that year. At that time we could fight with Recalde. Great driver, very strong man, very strong, physically very strong. We have a great fight always with the Lancia drivers. And we had at that time a problem with the turbos all the time, because we knew it was a piece breaking up all the time, and we have to manage, especially the last 2-3 days, many kilometers with very little boost and it was so. The concentration, tiring situation, you have to add the problem with the turbo, that it was very stressing if they managed to change a time or not, and if we were going to lose a lot of time or not. Finally, we won, and it was a huge human effort from all the Toyota team to win that year. And that is for sure one of the most difficult victories in my career.
I don't know how the hell Carlos was able to drive on the dust we had going down to Mombasa behind Miki Biasion, and it was dusty and incredible.
The Safari win was a great boost to the team, and another win in New Zealand put Carlos in a strong position in the championship. But Auriol and Kankkunen were far from beaten, and with 2 rounds to go, Sainz trailed the Lancias by 16 points. The penultimate round was Rally Catalunya, and Carlos gave the home fans plenty to cheer about with his first win in his home event.
That also put me in the route back to win the championship that year. And winning at home is very special. Catalonia roads, the fans, it was at the time where we have gravel and tarmac, and really enjoyed that year for sure. Give me a lot of motivation for the next rally RAC.
Carlos was now back in the lead, but only 3 points separated him, Kankkunen and Auriol. It would be winner takes all in Great Britain.
Fantastic event, because we were 3 drivers fighting for the championship. It was Juha Kankkunen, Didier and ourselves.
Auriol had led comfortably for most of the season, and with 6 wins you would say normally he would be champion. But that started to unravel towards the back end of the season. Carlos, with his consistent scoring and his wins, was able to take advantage.
Didier had a problem with the engine, and Joachim couldn't retire in a stage. I remember Phil Short telling me before the rally, he said that particular stage, Dalbiti was the name. It's a very tricky stage. It was tricky. It was very tricky for you particularly. And then he went off there and we won the event. It was a very good pressure. I mean, RAC later in the years, we've seen that he gave us some bad moments, but when we started, it was a very easy event for us, and you know, it used to work very well. I don't know why.
This time, of course, it was great, but I will keep the first one more in my head.
Carlos Sainz might seem less excited by his second championship win, but this was a year when he had to draw on every ounce of his ability.
Carlos never stopped. Lantis were strong, and halfway through the season, the car was a new Toyota that we had, and the car wouldn't work. He thought, you know, we will make it work, we'll make it work. And at the end of the season, we made it work. We won a championship we had lost.
Getting the best out of a car was one of Carlos's greatest attributes, but this had as much to do with his meticulous preparation as with his skill behind the wheel. Carlos was a renowned test driver.
He had the speed, obviously he had the speed, but he had a level of preparation that was just incredible. You know, he would be the first to arrive at the test and the last to leave, and he wouldn't go until he'd done absolutely everything, been through all of the setup, all of the settings and everything.
He was so committed to, you know, if you said you were starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, he'd be there, he'd be in the car at 10 to 8 and he'd be ready to go. And if you wanted to carry on till 4 o'clock in the following morning or 5 o'clock, he would still be there, he'd still be, you know, in the car, ready to do the work.
Sometime he called me just after the test, even at 11 o'clock in the night when he finished the test, and to ask what I think about this, about that, and even if he was 40 years old, he was really passionate in this, and so yes, it was really good to have a man like him in our team.
All the time you can receive a call from Carlos on Sunday, on Saturday, on Christmas. You never know, but you must be ready to answer the questions about the setting, about the notes, about the stages, about everything.
You would test something and he would try it the first time and it would be quicker, but he wouldn't settle for that. He'd want to go back to his original base setting and then go back again. And then he'd go back again later on, you know, probably do the same thing again later on in the day.
I can remember one particular time spending a week doing brake testing, and we had probably 3 or 4 different manufacturers there. We had different calipers. We went through a massive program of brakes, and we found, even if it was maybe 1% better, we found that 1% better combination. He was the guy, he would sit in that car and just do it, and he would be very, very consistent and give us extremely good feedback. And you could find that small change with Carlos because he had the patience to do it.
And Carlos demanded the same level of dedication from the rest of his team.
He was so fastidious in testing, so demanding of everybody. He would just push and push and push until he was sure that we'd given our all and got the best car he possibly could.
He had, like all top drivers, you know, in the history of WRC Championship, you know, Sebastian Loeb, Colin McRae, Didier Oriol, Joachim and Tommy Mäkinen, Carlos, they all have talent. You have to be born with this talent to become a world champion. But also the capacity that Carlos had to work and to lead the team, you know, and the feeling he had and the ideas he would give to the engineers, how to, which way, which line to take, or what to do. And when he said, this is working, you knew it was working. And if he said, this is not working, it was not working. He would try it as many times as needed, but once something he said is not working, that's out of the equation.
You have to say, Carlos pushed us, and it was very, very good to work with him in those days. I mean, it was hard work, but it was rewarding.
I want to take this opportunity again to say thank you to all the teams, all the mechanics, all the engineers, because I'm sure many times I've been a pain in really to work with.
It was team musical chairs at the start of the 1993 season. Carlos Sainz left Toyota as world champion and joined the Constructors' champions Lancia, while Juha Kankkunen and Didier Oriol went the other way. and they looked to have the better half of the deal, with Kankanen taking his 4th world title. Carlos was still pushing, but sometimes too hard. This was Rally Portugal. And Carlos's pride was also taking a battering as he failed to top the podium in this season.
It was a disappointing year, yes. At that time we thought that Lancia was still going to be a winning team, but Lancia, they already knew, I think, they were going to retire the following year. We didn't. And we went and there was not a lot of development. Things didn't go right and we didn't win any event, and we were fighting very hard and we were testing and working very hard, but things were not coming together.
The evolution of the Lancia stopped even 1 year before. Don't take me wrong, I have good memories of the people. The team spirit was very good, but the car was not competitive at all.
We had to move to another team, and then we had the opportunity to go to Subaru. And I think it was a very wise, a very good decision at that moment. And probably if we didn't leave Toyota in '92 to go to Lancia, probably would have been the kind of drivers that remain always in the same team. We probably maybe stay forever in Toyota, and we stay there all our lives. So when we went from Toyota to Lancia, things were not right. Then we went to Subaru, then we went to Ford. But it was very good because you learn a lot. You know, you work with different teams, different nationalities, different engineers, and everything. You know, you learn a lot and you get a lot of experience, and you work with different tires. And I think it was a very positive thing to do.
So it was back to a Japanese manufacturer in 1994, this time Subaru, where Carlos also found himself teaming up with Colin McRae.
Subaru was, I think, was a very good team. I think it was a team well organized. At that time, a little bit of lack of experience because it was the first year they were coming in full program in the championship. But technically it was good, very good mechanics, very good engineers, and it was good memories because I was helping the team in terms of growing.
Not surprisingly, Carlos was very quick to find his feet in the new team. Some impressive stage times helped him to 3rd place in Monte Carlo, while he was in the points again in Portugal. But it was Carlos's former employer's Toyota who was setting the pace in the championship. But Carlos was certain his new team could succeed.
At that time, David Laporte was engineer. The young engineer was Christian Loriot, and well, I think it was everybody again very motivated to do the maximum.
And their motivation was paying dividends. The Impreza's improvements were clear to see in Corsica, where despite a broken anti-roll bar and a puncture a few stages from the end, Carlos managed 2nd and was back in the race for the championship.
Carlos was very specific about what he wanted around the car. He played a big part in professionalizing our team at that time, I would say. He is very driven perfectionist.
And the Carlos Subaru package were near to perfection at the Acropolis Rally, where they left the rest of the field over 4 minutes behind, a win which saw him draw level with Toyota's Juha Kankanen at the top of the drivers' standings. But it would be the Toyota of Didier Auriol that was to be Carlos's biggest obstacle in his quest for a 3rd World Championship. And it was he who topped the standings as they headed for what was to be another nail-biting decider in Great Britain. And with Auriol experiencing a catalogue of problems which saw him way out of the points, Carlos was in a position to take the crown until the first stage of the final day.
It was a bad year, you know. Again, we had the rally, we were leading. It was, you know, it was supposed to be easy. It was a very long corner, which in fact we changed something on the notes for the following year. It was not bad, but you know, we changed something and we just maybe lost the concentration or something and we went off there. Sometimes things happen like that and there's nothing you can do about it.
Carlos's chance of a 3rd Drivers' Championship and a first for Subaru had disappeared. But Carlos would again be in the running for the title in 1995, a season which was as dramatic as it was controversial. See you after the break. Welcome back to our review of the WRC career of Carlos Sainz. The 1995 season was made up of just 8 events, and Carlos got off to a winning start in Monte Carlo, his second win in the Principality, but the first for Subaru. Engine failure in Sweden resulted in a no score, but he followed this with another win in Portugal, where he came out on top in another epic battle with Juha Kankkunen, despite driving the final stage with virtually no brakes. That put Carlos into the lead in the Drivers' Championship, which he strengthened with a 4th place finish in Corsica. But then Carlos had a big off, and he was not even in a car.
I think 95 I could have won the championship, but I fell off my bike and broke the 3 tendons of the shoulder. I couldn't participate in part of the championship.
You could fall down from a mountain bike and break an ankle, which in 3 weeks you are ready to go again. But what he did in his shoulder was quite bad. And luckily, Carlos's determination to recover, he took a physiotherapist with him to his summer house, or the parents' summer house, and he stayed there and he did an incredible recovery. Normally, a normal person would have taken longer to do it than Carlos.
As it was, Carlos only missed Rally New Zealand, where Colin McRae took the victory. And with the challenge from old foes Kankkunen and Oriol removed when Toyota were excluded from the championship, the battle for the Drivers' Championship would become a head-to-head between the 2 Subaru drivers. Carlos returned to the championship fight in Australia, but an overheating engine on the first day meant that he would not add any championship points here. McRae finished second, enough for him to overtake the Spaniard at the top of the drivers' standings. The championship was bubbling nicely, but it was about to overheat in Carlos's home event, Rally Catalunya.
Spain was the big story with Colin. Yeah.
We were, Carlos and Colin, we were leading the rally, and Colin was second, and then David Richards came because the 3rd car was far behind. So he came to us and said, okay guys, that's the end of the story. Carlos, you're going to win, Colin, you're going to become second, and this and that. We came out of that room, of the motorhome, and then Carlos went to Colin and said to Colin, Colin, this is not fair. You're doing a fantastic event, so we're going to do it fair and square. We don't say anything, but we keep fighting. So then we went to a stage, it was at night, and then we went to the stage and we went flat out, both of us. But we beat Colin by 3 seconds, I remember. And DR got mad. We got to service and he said, we told you to go, you're mad, you can ruin our event and this and that. So he said, you have to slow down.
Firstly, I don't think Carlos believed me when I said, look, we will control this situation. That is what has been agreed. And, you know, we're a British team, Colin's a British driver, you know, it's all stacked against me, but that's not the way we were.
So the following day we started, and we started to go fast, very fast, but not as we were the day before. And Colin was catching up some time, and Carlos said to me, Luis, what do we do now? I said, Carlos, David was very clear. You know, that's the way it is, and we have to go like this to the end. And then Colin was going, the team was telling him to slow down, he wouldn't do it.
The team were having to do everything to get Colin to slow down, as he was looking to gain every available point to help his championship bid. But eventually he towed the team line, taking a time penalty that ensured he would finish second, and Carlos took the win. That victory put Carlos on level points with Colin, but that meant that he had to go and beat the Scotsman in his own backyard in Rally Great Britain. A damaged radiator on day 1 didn't help his cause. But when the Scotsman had to change a wheel and damaged his suspension, Carlos saw his opportunity and retook the lead. But on a classically wet and foggy day in the Welsh forests, McRae fought back. He was not going to be denied a victory in front of his home fans. Carlos was second again. Carlos's chances of the championship in 1995 was not helped by his fall from a mountain bike, but his all-round fitness was a key component of his success, and again, this was an area where Carlos was a pioneer in the WRC.
I think he made a big difference, the way he approached rallies, how professional he was, trying to be fit. Now we see drivers training, but that was not normal before. And Carlos and myself, we were the first ones that started in the sport. regularly.
But physical fitness was not just a means to an end for Carlos. He was a true all-round sportsman.
He could have been a fantastic football player. He was a Spanish champion of squash when he was 17 years old. He went to play a European Championship. He could play good tennis. He started to play golf later. I mean, anything he did with the sport, he was very good at.
Life is not so easy. Going up.
In that respect, you kind of hate people like that. You know, every time we had to play on something, he was always good. You know, luckily he was a better swimmer than him, but anything he would do. And then if he take a bicycle, he had to win. And if he was jogging, you know, we used to jog together. And I knew always that he was faster than me on speed, on distance. Maybe I could. So then at the end, you know, I always tried to go a bit faster to see if he was getting tired. He would pass me at the end and we would have fights. But he had to win anything he could do. And he had this ability, this talent too, since he was born.
I remember now when I was, we were playing ping pong, you know, ping pong, and he was pushing a lot, tried to win me. And okay, maybe it was not his best sport, okay, but always he was trying to win. And this is the difference between a real man who likes to win a championship and another one that is only playing.
When you have been doing a lot of sport and you come into a sport like motorsport, like rallying, and at that time obviously I was in a very good condition, so I think in general, physically and mentally, it has been a great help for me, not only at that moment but also to keep, I think, somehow the level during so many years.
Rally was Carlos's choice in terms of a career move, and a good choice it was. But his passion for football still remains, in particular his support for the mighty Real Madrid, the club he once had trials for. He's a regular spectator and sometime player at their Bernabeu stadium.
I'm a great passion of football and Real Madrid, so I think I am a member of the club since I born. I play myself a lot of football, the low level in the school and after. And,
Not too bad, eh?
I think many people follow football, and I have been just one more, with a lot of passion and enjoy as well.
1996 saw another change in direction for Carlos with a move to drive for Ford. This season saw just one win in the Escort Cosworth in Indonesia, a new event on the calendar where the tropical climate provided a unique challenge.
Suddenly you start the rally and then it could be that you get a storm full of water, everything, and you cannot imagine how slippery it was. The fastest tire in those conditions were the Swedish snow tire.
Carlos used to say that Indonesia was like the Monte Carlo of gravel, because it was so difficult. All of a sudden you started to rain, and it was so muddy and slippery that you couldn't stand.
Carlos repeated the win in Indonesia in 1997, where he also picked up his third win in the Acropolis Rally, which was the first for Malcolm Wilson, who was now in charge of the Ford WRC program. But in both these years, Carlos was beaten by the new force in the WRC, Tommi Mäkinen and Mitsubishi. And 1998 would see Carlos going head-to-head with the Finn in a championship that had the most dramatic of conclusions. The 1998 season saw Carlos back at Toyota in the Corolla, which they'd launched the season before.
We had the opportunity to go back to Toyota, and we said, why not? You know, it didn't feel like it was 5 or 6 years, whatever it was, since we left them.
And it seemed just like the old days, with Carlos delivering the Corolla's first win at the season opener, Monte Carlo.
We did not manage to do 1 meter on the snow before the rally because it was no snow anywhere. And so, first time in the Corolla, winning straight away and in a difficult condition was I think was one of my best results.
He followed this with second place in Sweden and second on his 100th WRC start in Portugal, where he lost to Colin McRae by just 2.1 seconds. This run of strong performances continued, culminating with a win in New Zealand and a hard-fought second place in Finland, which saw him open up a 9-point lead in the championship. But Mäkinen picked up victories in Italy and Australia to overhaul Carlos in the standings, taking a 2-point lead to Great Britain. This rally has hosted some dramatic season finales, but nothing has come close to what unfolded in 1998. When Mäkinen retired on the first day after skidding on a patch of oil and losing a wheel, Carlos only needed to finish 4th to collect his 3rd Drivers' Championship.
For 3 days I knew I was going to be champion if nothing happens, because I think I have to finish in the top 6. At that time I was 4th. I think, you know, you have to wait one day, another day, and then the last day, and then you go to the service, and then the last 2 stages you do the second last, and then you go to the last, and then you arrive to the end, and then suddenly you have the mechanical problem, and then you lose the championship.
Amazingly, the engine of the Toyota Corolla had given way just 500 meters from the end of the final stage, handing the championship back to Mäkinen.
The engine had a hole like this, and I could see the hole on the engine, and the engine would never start, you know, but I could not believe that we were going to stop there in Margan Park. I could not believe it. This is not possible. And I said, Carlos, for God's sake, try to start it. But of course he knew he was not going to start, but he still tried, but there was nothing we could do.
Ultimately, we as a team didn't give him the goods. And I don't want to berate my own team, I'm not doing that, but we failed. And I think the bottom line is, on these muddy rallies, when a driver starts to slow down, you actually end up loading the engine in a different way. You drive it more on the torque rather than nailing it all the time, and I think the engine got stresses it probably didn't normally get, and we got caught out. Carlos got caught out. Well, what a dreadful loss.
There is a lot of people still in Spain that they recognize me for what happened that year, and they don't know that we won 2 championships. You know, you would ask him, who is Luis Moya, and they know, the guy that threw the helmet through the back window. I remember a football player from Barcelona team, which he's a good friend of mine. He said to me, Luis, I can imagine that I'm trying to hit the last penalty on a football match in the World Cup, and I miss it. I said, no, imagine that the ball explodes. We didn't miss it. We didn't make anything wrong.
As you can imagine, that was a very hard situation. But at the same time, I think I learned many things from that situation. It was not my mistake, it was something just came, and what can you say? It made me stronger. It made me stronger, I must say.
A winless 1999 season saw Carlos finish 5th in the Drivers' Championship. And with Toyota withdrawing from the WRC, Carlos found himself on the way back to Ford, again joining forces with Colin McRae.
We always felt that, you know, it would be the dream team really to have, because we'd signed Colin for the 99 season with the new Focus, and Carlos became available, and it was just, you know, it was an obvious choice. He was a great motivator for us, because I mean we were a very young team at that point in time, and okay, we had Colin, you know, one of the fastest drivers in the World Championship, but you know, we needed direction as well, and he had a tremendous amount of experience, and as I say, he had a great work ethic, which really pushed us on to where we are now.
Carlos was second on his first event in the Focus in Monte Carlo, and also notched up podium finishes in Portugal and Spain. However, an uncharacteristic mistake on one of his favourite hunting grounds, Argentina, meant a DNF there. His first win in the Focus would not come until much later in the season at the inaugural Cyprus Rally.
Cyprus was a new event into the championship, and he basically, not out of character, but he actually led right from start to finish, and I think it was a lot of surprise to a lot of people, but I think again it just shows that how clinical, how professional everything he was, because at that point in time we never had new events in the championship, and I think it just proved how good and meticulous he was at making pace notes and being able to drive off them.
Despite a string of good results, Carlos's only other win in the Focus came in Argentina in 2002, when he was promoted from 3rd following the exclusion of the Peugeots driven by Marcus Gronholm and Richard Burns.
That can give you, in terms of numbers, a victory that maybe you deserve other time, because I have many situations where I've lost the rally in the last moment, not by my fault, maybe by a mechanical failure or anything like that. So I give you back in terms of number a victory, but for sure the feeling is never the same than when you win in the States.
Carlos was with Ford for 3 seasons, in which time he was on the podium no fewer than 17 times. It's still a surprise to many that in tandem with Colin McRae that they lifted neither the manufacturer's or driver's title in this period.
I can look back now and reflect and think, well, yeah, we were very close. You know, we did come very close. Runner-up, I think, 2 or 3 times, either drivers or manufacturers in that period when they were both with us. But you look now and you look at the resource and everything you've created and the people, a team of people you've got, and that is the key ingredient. And as I say, I think it hurts me to say it, but I think probably we weren't actually ready then to actually do it, even though we had probably 95% of the ingredients. We didn't have that 100% like we do have now.
2003 saw Carlos on the move again, and like with Toyota, Subaru and Ford, he was joining a team on the up as he moved on to drive for Citroën. But this time, Lewis was not coming with him.
We had a disagreement, Carlos and myself, with the contract. Yeah, we had a disagreement, but I could never judge Carlos for that day because probably he thinks he made a mistake, and I think he made a mistake, you know. But if I put 15 years together that he spent with Carlos, the balance is incredibly positive. You know, I cannot think that for that day, and in fact we remain very good friends still. We still call each other. We did a rally recently in Spain, and but then I decided to stop. You know, I didn't even think, I didn't get any phone call from any other driver, but for me it was a moment to stop. You know, if I don't continue with Carlos, what's the point of trying to do something else? Yeah, and it was, I've been 15 years with him. I was 42 years old then. That was 2002. So I thought, well, then I stopped.
Alongside Carlos, Lewis recorded 24 wins, then a WRC record for a co-driver. And along the way, he established himself as one of the WRC's true characters.
It was a strange partnership because, again, they were totally different characters, but I think if they'd both been the same and as committed and dedicated, not committed, but if Lewis had been as strong-willed and everything as Carlos, then I think it would have been difficult combination in the car. But I think the way that Lewis was very relaxed, and I think, you know, he could relax Carlos, and I think that was a vital thing because I think he knew how intense and focused Carlos could be. But you know, Lewis brought a sense of it. He was a great team player, was Lewis, and he was just a great asset, I think. And they got on very well in the car. And Lewis was, again, his record proves that he's a very good co-driver.
As you know, we are completely different. You know, people say that I am a bit more open person. I speak more than Carlos, and that I think that's why the relationship was so good. Think that for 15 years to be living in a cubic meter, because a car is a very small place. In a car, if you have a fight, there is no way to escape. You have to stay there. So you have to sort it between the two of you. And then, of course, we had some moments, you know, that it was difficult, because maybe I made a mistake, or maybe I said something he didn't like, or he said something he didn't like. And of course, there were big silences sometimes in the car. But we always got back together. We had always a very good relationship. We liked, you know, to finish the recce and go and do sport together. And we had a fantastic relationship. I don't think there is any other couple in WRC Championship that has been 15 years together.
What can I say about Luis? He has been my co-driver, my friend. We have a lot of love together, a lot of work. We have very hard moments together, and I will never forget. He has been an input and terrible partner, very valid. He has helped me a lot, and I must always thank him for all his work, and I have enjoyed very much all our partners.
So, a new team, a new co-driver, and a new challenge. Join us for the continuation of the Carlos Sainz story after the break. Welcome back to the WRC's Greatest Drivers, where we're looking back at the career of Carlos Sainz. Carlos began the 2003 season with the Citroën team, and also after a 15-year partnership with Luis Moya and new co-driver Mark Marty. But some things were familiar, as yet again he had Colin McRae as a teammate, but it would be his relationship with another team member that would define his time here.
Carlos was really important in the team because he was he had a big experience from a lot of other cars. He was also really meticulous. He wanted to have always perfect things. He wanted some very precise details.
Loeb had already delivered wins in the Sara in Germany and Monte Carlo. And it didn't take Carlos long to get his first win in the new car under his belt with a win in Turkey, which saw Carlos enhance his reputation as the master of new events.
It was very special. Why it was very special, the victory in Turkey? First of all, because that year, I don't know why, but people say, okay, maybe I should retire. And I thought, no, I think I'm still competitive.
I think it was important for Carlos, but for me, I think it was also very important for Citroën, because you know it was the first victory in gravel for Citroën. Everybody were thinking, everybody knows that Citroën were a big team and a very hard team on tarmac, but in Turkey it was the first victory in gravel.
Carlos had proved the Sara was a car for all surfaces, and his contribution was crucial to Citroën winning the manufacturer's title in 2003, their first full season in the WRC. While playing a support role to the new star of the WRC, Carlos still had another win in him, Rally Argentina 2004, his 26th victory, then a WRC record.
What does it mean to you to have your 26th victory?
Well, you know, I won here 13 years ago and I'm still winning. It's a very good feeling when you are 42 years old.
It means a lot. It means a lot for me. That means you have been a long period of time with possibilities of winning, being competitive. It was a good victory, a good fight with Marcos. So I think it was the last, but it was one of the best.
With another 7 visits to the podium that season, Carlos helped Citroën to dominate the manufacturer's championship. And this was also the year that Sebastian Loeb claimed his first World Drivers' title.
If I had a car as competitive as it was, I think it's a part because of his experience, and also for all the tire choices. I was always asking him, and sometimes he was asking me, but I always wanted to have his point of view, and then I made a decision. But I think he had a lot of good ideas, and that helped me all along the season when I was fighting for the title.
And this was also the season Carlos chose to announce his retirement, which led to some memorable scenes in what would be his last start in Spain. But this would only be a retirement of sorts, as the law of competition saw Carlos return twice to help out the Citroën team in 2005, with drives in Turkey and Greece, the event that he'd won on 3 previous occasions. So after nearly 20 years at the top, it was now time to call it a day. But what was the secret of Carlos's success?
The co-driver, of course. Have the best co-driver in the world. No, I don't know. I don't know, it's difficult. I think the talent and the determination that he has to win. And I think that's how it is, you know. His talent and determination. Very determined person.
Give him the tools to do the job, Carlos would do it every time. Never been equalled, in my estimation. And for me, actually, just as a matter of fact, not an opinion, a matter of fact, he is the greatest driver of his time.
He had such a great understanding of the whole sport, and that's when it was a lot more complicated than what it is now. But more importantly, what he actually wanted. I think he, how can we say, he set new standards. You know, he raised the game for everybody.
He's very professional, working. He's pushing a lot everybody to arrive at the end, but always with a lot of respect. He was always very diplomatic, very educated. You know,
you see it now if he ever turns up at a rally. I think he's the only driver that we've had working for us over the years that if he walked into this service park now, that everybody here in the team would stand to attention. He just commanded respect.
Thinking many times, when I retire, I want to be able to come back to every team and say hello and to get some recognition from the people who has been working against you or with you, battling with you, contracting you. I think that is the best recognition you can never expect. For me, it was the best prize I can get, more important than all these prizes, more important than all the best prizes I have at home. I felt very, 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 very proud, very happy.
Bye.